Hello, everyone. We're very happy to be here today, and we're happy to be back in Hallein. My name is Flavia Mazzanti, and this is my business and life partner, Manuel Bonell. And today, we are two of the three founders of Imiria, a media company based in Vienna.
Yeah, Imiria focuses on the development of VR games and interactive installations. But at Imiria, we also focus on working on a variety of different medias, from experimental filmmaking to interactive installations. We love to experiment and also to explore artistic concepts in our projects.
Yes, and also we are very active in public speaking, holding different talks and also teaching. We have been also external lecturer here at FH Salzburg. When we were still younger, a couple of years ago, we were also included in the Forbes 30 under 30, and now we're already beyond that. Yeah, so this is a really short glimpse into what we are doing and we've been doing for the past years. So we've been working together for almost 8 years. Manuel and I know each other from our background in art and architecture, and the third founder, Michel, comes from programming. We have been starting working together in 2017, 2018, and 4 years ago we started our company, Miriam. Today, we would like to focus on specifically on one project, which we find which might be pretty interesting also to bring in such a context, especially for its interdisciplinarity and the different approaches that we have in our work. And this is Beyond My Skin. It's a project that we have been working on and off for the past 3 years. The premiere was already in May 2023, but we always like to keep moving and adding layers to something, like not just to finish a project and to conclude it.
Why this project fits basically 3 main aspects: interdisciplinarity, multimedia approach, and creative experimentation. So these are 3 pillars what the project is based on, but also what reflects most our praxis in general. So first, interdisciplinarity, meaning we love to work with people from different disciplines. It enriches our projects, and also it creates a completely new dynamic in a team. Only working with artists, sometimes it feels you just know your own range, your own field, but once you take in a scientist or performer or someone else from a different discipline, it enriches your project in a completely new way. Multimedia approach is basically, we don't focus only on one media specific. Of course, we have a focus on virtual reality mainly, but we like to either experiment with different media throughout the project itself, or how in the way we show it. And creative experimentation is something we love to do. Rather than focusing on standard solutions, we like to invest time and resources in trying out new things and experimenting with it.
Yeah, and just to add, I think something that we also really like, sometimes we already know from the beginning, okay, we are going to work on a VR game, for example, but other times it just starts from maybe a concept or just an idea, and then we still don't know what kind of media, what kind of format this will be. And it's like during the process, also this process of adding, oh, maybe we could add one layer more, and now it makes sense to use, I don't know, mixed reality, or now we can do a performance. So it's always kind of a work in progress that we find that is like the beautiful part of it. And it's something that we always say, it's really about the process and not just about the result, at least for us. So we will just show, before starting talking about the project, we will show a very short teaser about it, which actually corresponds more to the first status of it. Yeah, so what actually Beyond My Skin is. So the project starts as an interdisciplinary project, exploring this hybrid relationship between our bodies and the digital representation in a very post-human context. So the first idea at the beginning, even before starting to understand if we did live performance or an installation, it was really just the idea of how can two bodies interact with each other in between a physical and a virtual context. And for us, it was, on the one hand, a bit of this critique that when we are just in a virtual space, we are often confronted with this idea, okay, we have to choose maybe an avatar. And this avatar is very simplistic. It's more like, okay, you have to choose your eyes and your hairs and so on. So it's not kind of a connection with somebody else. And also maybe you are in a completely different space. In a virtual space, you don't know the other person. So there is no contact in that sense. And on the other hand, if we are in a physical space, when I meet somebody, the first approach, or the first moment is always how the person looks like. So also there is kind of already an age, gender gap moment. So for us, it was like, how can we start a project where maybe we really explore this phygital and we also question what does it mean to be between a physical and a virtual space, and also what is about the representation out beyond this traditional binary and societal portrait of the classical avatars. So for this, we were really looking into more this post-human context of understanding how bodies are represented. Of course, always a lot of looking into Donna Haraway, but also Rosi Bredotti. But we were also looking at more contemporary readings, especially from COVID time, like Ferne Körper from 2022, which was also interesting in understanding how bodies are related to each other in a time where we cannot meet physically together. How can we still create this feeling of touch? And especially about this feeling of touch, it was also the idea for us, like how can we explore a sensation, like a feeling of getting together, connecting to each other on a different level, but at the same time without really this physical touch, but being in a virtual space together.
So the result of the first iteration was basically an installation of 6 by 4 meters. And we utilized 4 sensors on each corner, basically 4 Kinect sensors tracking the movements of the bodies in real time, and then projecting it to a screen or to a projection. So basically, the two performers see all the time their representation on the screens, meaning while they perform, while they interact, they have always this virtual representation of her body. And at the same time, it's also about this connection. So you have these two physical bodies, which while they go apart in the physical space, they come together into the virtual. So while they interact with the screen, they come always closer and closer together virtually, but physically they separate. And on one moment of the performance, they change, they start interacting physically, and in the virtual, they start to go apart. And both, it's also represented visually. So when they're more close, the visuals change in the opposite to when they're more apart.
Yeah, maybe you also will see, from the image, like the two bodies were not looking at each other, but at the same time, the silhouette would appear like they are facing to each other. So it was a lot of also playing with this, like who I'm looking at. Am I looking at somebody of a physical body? Am I looking to a virtual one? But I can still feel the presence behind me. But at the same time, I'm interacting through this virtual layer at the same time. So it was a lot of experimenting and playing with this concept as we started from the idea behind it until really realizing kind of how will it be then really taking place.
Further, we had also 2 different views. So one is the front view and one is more the top view. Both views play with different perceptions. So in the front view, you feel more the silhouette, more the avatar itself. You see the movements really translated into the screen. And in the top view, it becomes more spatial. Once we have the top view visualized during the performance, you don't really recognize the bodies anymore, but they become more an assemblage, a spatial assemblage throughout this performance, and all these interactions become more abstract in that sense.
Yes, and during the process for us, it was really important to work interdisciplinary, as we already mentioned before, is one of our key elements, basically in all our projects. So we have been working a lot together with a choreographer as well and a performer. So the idea at the beginning was, as soon as we started kind of developing this installation performance, it was the idea of having both, like a live performance, but also an interactive installation open to the audience. And the difference was really not only like the idea of having, okay, professional performers there, but more how to transmit also this concept behind. So we worked together with a choreographer. And the nice thing was also really the process of discovering things together, because you could imagine a choreographer comes or a performer and just starts dancing. That was not our case, because for her, it was also starting learning again what kind of movements, learning a new movement language, developing one together with the other performer, starting to understand how can we show certain things. So it was a really beautiful process of discovery together. What does it mean if you become just lines and particles, and when you approach somebody and you're also not feeling this touch, how can we represent this moment of touch where the two virtual figures really meet, but actually you are almost touching just a screen. And this is like also, it was a really nice process over different months of just like having a rehearsal and then having a break again and then talking again about it. And these are kind of a few words also from the choreographer.
Eventually, it all revolved around the meeting of two people, of two bodies, in virtual space and in real space. And I think this also informed our movement language in a way that we try to approach each other. So leaning forward movements or leaning backward movements started coming in. The more we learned to interact in the digital, I started feeling like it was really a touch when we touched in the digital space.
Yeah, the development process was really exciting because of this interdisciplinarity and also working with these different medias. And it was 1 year of planning, half a year of core development time working with different people. I think at the peak we were 10 people working on this project. And what was really interesting was it was not so divided between, okay, there's a concept, then we program it, and then we talk to the performers. But actually the performers were already involved while the project was already in a kind of a prototype stage. Meaning we took also feedback from the performers, tried to implement it, thinking about, okay, what kind of things we could change, how is the movement actually, what kind of language of movement are they evolving around this installation. And this back and forth with the performers, with the choreographer mainly also, and also the technical issues with working with the sensors. Everyone who worked with sensors knows how difficult it is to make it run smoothly in real time, because it was also a risk for us to say, okay, we don't want to have something recorded or something safe in that sense, but it's all real time and interactive, and everything can happen basically during a performance. So this was really, really challenging to master.
Especially like during the live performance, we had moments where we wanted to have the performers also exit in the space and then re-enter again. And of course, if you have like people who are like the audience really close to the sensors, it could also happen that there is another body tracked and then you kind of lose the performer. So we were making a lot of tests also. So it was kind of a lot of trying and testing, and for us it's always like this, not just a linear process of, okay, now the project is finished and let's just present it, but it's always like trying to have multiple iterations and also start understanding from the different perspectives. At the same time, it was not only having the feedback from the performers, but it was also like talking together with programmers and technical artists, people who are not coming like from really creative fields, but are still also trying to understand from their point, like how much can we also push in the technology experimentation, where is really a point where it's like maybe not working anymore. So it was also really nice in that way. And I think now in the photo is not, we will see it later, but it was also a person working on the audio, and in the live performance it was a live audio. So the audio was also like reacting to the movements of the performance at the same time. So it was a really nice process of involving different fields together. Yes, and so basically how the project then has been presented for the last 2 years and is still going like around the world. We had, as we said at the beginning, the interactive installation, the performance, which were at the same time, and then around this time, 1 year ago, we also worked on a mixed reality experience, which was, as we said, kind of a new layer of a project, like adding something new in a moment where we felt it makes sense. We need this part as well. We will also like to add this to the experience. And we will also now come there. So for the installation, one of them was at the Medien-Kunstlabor in Graz, and it was like really nice because it was over 2 months of installation, and so there was a lot of time also to see the reaction of visitors and people passing by and how they react to it.
Yeah, it was originally designed as a performance with professional performers, as a kind of choreographed installation, but also it should have the purpose of being there for the visitors, for the public. And this was one of the nice moments for us when we had the possibility to exhibit it in Graz, because we introduced the project with a live performance there, and then afterwards it was open for the visitors to use. And there the beauty started, because people saw the performance, and right afterwards they tried to mimic actually the movements of the performance and the way they interacted with the installation. And yeah, it was a really interesting moment for us also to perceive this different understanding, and we also found some really nice new ways how people want actually to interact with it.
Yeah, I think one of them was like, of course, right after the performance, like it was the opening. We had a performance with the Steirische Herbst, and then it was a lot of people just wanted to try that right after the performers. There were also like just children wanted to try in a playful way, and it's also the nice thing. That's also the reason why we chose to work with sensors and not like with a suit, because like with sensors, everybody who comes into the scene is immediately in part of it. If you have like suits, we already also worked with motion capture suits, but you have like, first of all, not everybody who comes to an exhibition wants to wear it, so it's already like at the first barrier. Then it also depends from the size of your body, so if you have children, it's much more difficult, or maybe also people in wheelchair. So in this sense, it was much more accessible in the sense that everybody who is just coming into the scene of 4 meters will be included into the installation. So sometimes it was also nice, like in these examples, people were not really dancing, but just passing by. Sometimes they didn't even know, because like we were going in these 2 months of installation, sometimes just to see it like for the weekend, and it was just nice to see that people sometimes just pass by. They had no idea what's going on, but they could realize, oh, there is another silhouette, and then they had to turn and to look and to see, oh, and talk to the other person, maybe in space. They didn't know that other person. So it was kind of these encounters that they were not planned. And I think that was also something which was really interesting for us, because it started with really with this idea of not the physical touch, but more really this Berührungsmoment, this moment of how can we encounter somebody in a space in between. And that through the screen, we actually also start talking together in the physical space. So that was also the idea. And that was really beautiful, because especially through the installation, were these moments of just passing by and realizing, oh, there is another figure, and I'm communicating with it in the virtual, so let me also talk to them in the physical space. And then, yes, we said there is the live performance, and the live performance was for us really it took a lot of time in the sense of working together with a choreographer to developing really this kind of 20 to 30 minutes performance, which has kind of somehow a narration or narrative around the whole concept, and this meeting in between different spaces, starting actually more from being separated, more like just communicating through the virtual, and then through by working through this, also like meeting in the physical again. So we worked with a choreographer, 2 performers. This was our premiere on the Angewandte Disciplinary Lab in Vienna. It was on the 4th of May of 2023. So there was kind of the first public appearance of the project. And this was also, as we mentioned, like a lot of people really close to, like we had the 4 sensors, and we had also on the other side the live sound. And we didn't want to have kind of this feeling that you are on a stage, really. It's more like everybody's just around and is watching, and technically also afterwards you could just jump in and try. But it was a completely different story when we were bringing it to the Deep Space, the Arts Electronica Center. Last year, we got invited, especially for the International Women's Day. They were making a special program, and we had the chance to show the performance there. And I think this is also a moment where we had kind of to rethink the whole performance again.
Yeah, mainly because the challenge was, okay, we have these huge projections in 8K twice, so one for the top view, one for the front view. And of course, for us, it was perfect because we had this front view and the top view of the performers. And for us, the challenge was how can we rethink our project again, because till now it was either front or top, or also the size is different. There's no more. Before, the virtual was smaller than the actual person, but now it's 5 times bigger. And how will the performers react? We were also unsure. What is the feedback? Will they say, it's not doable, or it's weird, or too much? But at the end, we were surprised how incredibly immersive it was, actually. Because the performers, based on the top view, they were really moving inside this whole constellation of particles and lines. And for the viewer, it was, I mean, the space is beautiful because it has this really atmospheric space. It's dark, and it has a really good sound system, the high quality visuals. And for us, this type of performance was really, really strong, actually, to perceive it in this way. Yeah.
And at the same time, also the fact that you don't have like the 2 projection on the other side, it was just 1 frontal projection. So it was also rethinking, reworking with the performers in the sense of, okay, you are looking at the other direction, but basically you have on the side the projection this time. And at the same time, when you move, you are actually surrounded by your movements on the floor. So yeah, it was a lot of also trying.
Yeah, and of course, the other aspect was the live sound. This was not visible before, but Paul, who is called Brutworth, is a really incredible DJ and sound maker from Vienna, and he made the sound live. So he had all his synthesizers set up, and he was creating the sound live based on what he saw with the performers, or what they decided how to perform, and what kind of sound escape will there be. And it was really beautiful that while the performers were performing in front, he was actually really performing in the back. And here is a short view about it.
The nice thing was also Paul was part of the team since the beginning, so he has been working with us on the whole from the concept to understanding, together with the performers from the beginning until 1 year later, still working on this new performance, and every time kind of adapting the sound a bit differently depending on the situation. Yes, and here then it's the point where the new layer, which is the mixed reality experience, came into play, and I think it was also kind of a really important moment in the development, because like we had the performance, we had the installation, and it was kind of, okay, now let's try like maybe to bring the project just further, but there was still kind of something which for us was still not completely solved, which was also another question of we are basically working with bodies, which like these lines come from real bodies. So they were real physical human beings, which are becoming like this. So we're bringing them to the digital. And what if we just bring them back also to the physical? And at the same time, what if we also not just bring them to the physical, but we bring them also to public space? And what does it mean? How is this impact, especially when we talk about these encounters, this like how we approach somebody in space, and especially also like in the installation when you approach somebody that you don't know. So if you start talking about encounters, a public space is the best place for it. And this is actually where we decided to work on a mixed reality experience, a version of this of the performance, and to bring it actually through a series of experiments and interventions in the city to different public spaces. So yeah, the idea was really kind of to start questioning also this the third space, which also like Homi Baba also talks about in the location of culture. What does it mean really like this this moment of encounter, different cultures as well coming together, and at the same time, it was the idea that we are bringing like going myself with a chair into different public spaces in Vienna. Where over 15 locations, sitting with something which I'm bringing from my own private space, put in there, and actually seeing how people first of all interact with me, like react to my body being there with the VR glasses, and at the same time also how these virtual bodies, which nobody sees, they are also interacting in some form with people who are just passing by and just crossing them without knowing it.
Yeah, maybe interesting to mention for the people who never tried a mixed reality experience, it's not that you just see it flat, it's really spatial. So because it's VR and because the field of view is really large, it really feels a digital object in the space. It's completely different than AR experience with the phone, which has this narrow window to see through, but also it's way more than just a projection in that sense. It's really, you feel it three-dimensional, which is really beautiful in this case. Also then later we brought it to different cities. Of course we tried in Sao Paulo and Tokyo, where we both have been the last year, and tried to do the same thing, these public interventions, recording it, and seeing also how the people pass by and how it feels to have it there.
Yeah, and the why we chose these three locations, that has also a really specific meaning, because we didn't want to also just to take whatever city around the world. São Paulo is the second city where we are based, because I'm also Brazilian. So it's a place where we know we are spending a lot of time. So it's also a different sense how you walk through the city, your security that you have between Vienna and just going to São Paulo. And at the same time, Tokyo was like the perfect third location that we had the possibility to show the work in February of this year as part of a festival which is called Dick Shibuya. So it was the possibility to be there physically for some time, and also understanding kind of how to deal with a different location, a different city, a different culture. So we also wanted to have kind of cities or places where we are physically there, that we are also feeling somehow that we know them, that we are not just passing by. So these recordings were like done between the three cities. That's on the left is in São Paulo, some in Vienna and Tokyo are just alternating themselves. I think the beautiful thing also that we learned there, it was really also on the one hand the personal perception of being in these different spaces. Also, what does it mean to bring your chair and your VR glasses to a public space, a street, in Europe, in South America, or in Japan? And how do people react, or also how do you feel in that space? Especially, for example, in São Paulo, the city is not so safe like being in Austria. So it was also the question of how comfortable are we feeling to be just there with a chair and the VR glasses? How much security do we also need? Somebody which checks. In this case, I was doing the recording. Manuel was checking that nothing happens. And also like the choice of the location. How much is public? How much is like a semi-public space? Especially when it's about South America and all the cultural centers and all the places which are outside spaces, but in between, because they feel safe, but they are still part of an institution or something. In Tokyo was also the topic of what does it mean to make these recordings at night? Because especially with the VR glasses, is also the topic that most of the time you need a lot of light. So it's really hard to make them here in Austria because at night is not so so much light in the city. But Tokyo, especially in Shibuya, it's such a vibrant city, and it's like living 24/7. So it was like we could just go everywhere and just make the recordings, and also seeing how people also reacting to that. So it was the whole process really interesting, and added this new layer that we wanted to have. And at the same time, as already mentioned, it was the possibility to show the project as part of a bigger exhibition in a gallery in Shibuya. And we had it was 3 different floors of exhibition, and on this floor, Beyond My Skin was exhibited as a mixed reality installation, but at the same time also with 3 LED screens.
Yeah, and also finally we had the opportunity to show the videos at the Shibuya Cranberry Crossing, which is the main crossing in Tokyo, Japan. And it was really exciting to have this opportunity to showcase these works on a new type of screen. So it also feels different if you have an LED panel, this big screen, a huge projection in 8K, but every time it adds a new texture to the visuals. Also the spatial context is really important if it's in this crossing, in a closed space, in an exhibition context, and so on.
Yes, and especially in this crossing, that's pretty a famous one in the world. There are like so many different billboards. In this case, were 4 billboards. And you realize, again, you're bringing this project again to public space, how people passing by just they want to catch the last subway and just going home. And they're still like stopping. And maybe I started also talking to some people who were just curious. We were like a team from the festival there, and people just spontaneously started stopping and asking information about the project, and was again through the project again these encounters. And I think like this is something beautiful, like just about this, how much we can just meet and talk to people and create connections, either through directly in the project through the installation, but also through the curiosity of bringing it through different formats, also in different contexts, and also not just in a gallery, just in a festival, especially dealing also with public space. And it was for us kind of a big topic. Yeah, it's just a bit short clip from the screening. It was in February of this year. We will have another big screening, public screening, running this summer for over 2 months, and we will be announcing it soon in another continent. We're also very excited about it. And just to conclude.
Yeah, to summarize, these are our 3 main terms: interdisciplinarity, multimedia approach, and creative experimentation, which we hope we could give you a glimpse into our praxis through this project. Especially the interdisciplinary part was really strong in this project, but also the different media we used, or we tried to evolve the project through these new medias and also giving a new context to it. And the creative experimentation is something we really believe in our company and all our praxis, and trying to find something really strong in every aspect we are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we would like to open it for questions. And if you would like to stay in touch with us, and we are also always looking for people from all different disciplines to join our projects, and yeah. Question. Yeah. You mean in the process of discovering the language, movement language, or? Yeah, like how was the movement translated to the particles? Technical?
Conceptually, it was really interesting because the performers have this really subtle way of movement. They also work a lot with the fingers and little head movements, and then they try to test it with with the Kinect sensor and the particles, and it was so abstracted and so generalized in a sense that all these little movements were not working in this particular sense. So they needed to train and to talk with us what kind of movements work. And I think this is your question, right? What kind of movements are stronger? And at the end, of course, you have to deal with the technical side, so larger movements and showing more the arms and legs works better with the sensor than being crumbled together. But we also realized that because it's more like a silhouette, also these crumbled together things work, but you should always give a feedback back in a sense of there are moments where it's so abstract that you don't recognize the bodies, but then they break this abstractness by revealing certain aspects of the body again. So you as a viewer, you are in between of I recognize the figure, I don't recognize it, but then I see the correlation to it, and then you recognize it again. So it's kind of this interplay, yeah.
Yeah, and like in the performance itself, we played a lot conceptually with it. So like at the beginning, it was kind of this, just we start with a silhouette. So you kind of recognize clearly, just like starting with big movements, slow. At some point, it started really like a lot of more action. So it was not so important anymore to start understanding this is that. And also where more action was, we tried always to switch to this top view, so it was kind of bigger spatial movements. So they were both like really using the whole space and running through it. And something which was also nice, it was sometimes like when there was a lot of chaos, like one performer just jumping out, so leaving kind of the particle just like this live moment, and then kind of starting decreasing intensity, and then they will come again into the scene. So conceptually we could play a lot with it.
I cannot say it specifically because I'm not a programmer, but I know that it was hybrid. It was on one hand the depth data, so the point cloud itself coming from the Kinect, but also extracting the motion capture data, like you can extract the bone structure of the skeleton. And we mapped it not directly to a complete avatar, but there was a certain amount of mapping to have kind of what you saw were only these people, and it was kind of not good readable, and in a way we worked with mapping it back to some shapes, but it was kind of hybrid, yes.
How was the cultural reception different from Brazil, Tokyo, and Vienna? I mean, I think they're rather different contexts.
Yeah, you mean like for this, like just doing the experimentation in public space?
Public space as well as the people reacting to your artwork, and for you yourself, I think like the entire how you deal with proximity, how you deal with openness, closeness, questions. Yeah. It must have changed. It's quite heterogeneous spaces.
Yeah, I mean, like by doing just the interventions public space, like I think the more even more proximity was in Vienna actually, where people would really like just look at it and stop by and take picture, or like younger people just passing by and trying like to say hi and so on. So it was kind of this immediate reaction. In Brazil, I had always the feeling that people, as soon as they saw the glasses and they thought, okay, maybe somebody's filming or there's doing something, they were trying really to pass on the edge of the street, not to be inside it. So I had kind of it's weird because Brazil is like culturally is really the proximity and being close to each other, but I think it's a lot of this surveillance as well. So the first idea, like as soon as they saw cameras or so, it was kind of, okay, I'd just rather go the other direction. In Tokyo, it was a lot of different depending on the time. If you are going out at the evening and there are a lot of young people drinking in Shibuya, they were all excited about it. And then I was also doing some recordings during the day in different contexts, and then I tried really to be a bit more, also a lot of respect, of course, for the culture and people who don't like just want to be on the video, or like they want also just like not much chaos in that sense. I would say that in Tokyo, what I liked in the exhibition space, for example, it was beautiful that people really took the time. And I think this is something that I learned now from exhibiting the work in Japan. It was people took the time to really experience the full thing. Sometimes they just stayed over 1 hour in the exhibition, and it was not like a museum exhibition, so it was a relative amount of things to see, but still they really wanted to see the documentation video from the start to the end. They wanted them to sit and experience the mixed reality from the beginning to the end, and also watch the LED video from the beginning to the end, and still have maybe some questions. So that was really beautiful for me to see how people who just like spend time trying to understand what was there. And if I have the feeling sometimes in Europe we are more in a rush, so if we see something, maybe I don't understand, you try 1-2 seconds and you're like, okay, maybe I just move on to the next project. And there it was kind of just this super politeness, but also at the same time really taking the time for that. It was a beautiful thing for me.
Yeah, we had this topic. It was it was really crucial because if you remember the image of the vernissage of the project, of the premiere of the project, it was in the Angewandte Innovation Lab, and there were 100 people standing in front, and we were really worried that the Kinect sensors are tracking them. So we did some tests 1 or 2 weeks before, I think, before the main event, how many people are trackable. And yeah, we ended up counting tens of people, but at the end we realized it's also not so important for our case because we limited the space, and we were saying just simple, okay, everyone who is outside this space eliminated. But in the background they were all tracked. I don't know how many were tracked, because also to be tracked you need to be visible, you know. Even if there are 100 people, maybe only the first row is tracked and the other one behind just with the face, it's not really an issue. But the problem were there also when the performers were exiting and entering the space. So it's about, will you be tracked again correctly or not? But at the end, we were lucky to work with really talented people on this project, 2 main programmers and 1 technical artist who, managed to solve this issue, yes. But it was really difficult, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of tests before the performance, because you really realize the performance is not like an exhibition. It's like you have these 20 minutes, either it's working or not. You cannot just like, it was working before, or something like this. So we did a lot of, as Manuel said, a stress test, calling a lot of people that we know and trying to have at least 20, 30 people and to see where you tracked, is it working, and just testing again.
How was it outside of those performances? Because in performances you have like 2 people and you try to cut out the rest. If you have like this interactive experience, like if there are like 12 people at the same time inside this tracked area, doesn't it just become a blur at some point?
We had a maximum.
Yeah, I mean, we had some kind of. I think you worked already with the sensors, right? I mean, there is some kind of ID attachment to every person who enters, so you could limit it in a certain way, so that visually you don't have this overload. But in terms of point cloud, yes, you have. If you just take the depth sensor as a data, you might have this problem. Yeah. Mm.
I think we have a really nice image of when we were setting up in Graz for the installation, and we had just like a
ladder.
A ladder.
Someone fixing the lights.
Someone fixing the lights, and the ladder was like, because you have to imagine like technically we had kind of a field split into parts, so you need at least one person one side, the other person the other one, and it was just this ladder there, and the person then just like left the space. And it was still captured that the ladder was the second player. And it was like, I think I have some photos, because it was just funny to see like how the system tried to understand how the other person at the space was interacting with the ladder. And to see like if you come too close, creating the lines, and I was like, it's not a person, but still.
But also for us, it's not really important to make this perfect thing, you know. Of course, for the performance, it's important that it works smoothly, okay? But for an exhibition context, we like that people discover things, you know, and even if it's just a ladder standing there and being tracked with the points, and even as a player, it just works and it adds to this experience, you know. So we are the least one who really tried to clean it out perfectly. It's just for the performance, it was a bit more delicate, yeah.
Thank you so much, and we are just around if you have any question, want to talk.